Namaste. You know, the Gita, of course, is just a continuous dialogue. And what I've been doing is interrupting this dialogue with comments all the time. But it would be nice to listen to a few verses just in their own sequence, and then I can talk about them. And so let me read to you, again from the 6th chapter, beginning with verse 18. When the citta, or feeling, is completely calmed and centered inwardly in the self, the yogi, freed from every attachment and desire, attains the state known as union with God. A candle flame burns steadily, protected from the wind. Even so is the consciousness of that yogi who has subdued his citta. The state of complete inner tranquility, which is attained by yoga meditation, wherein the little self, the ego, perceives itself as the self, enjoys itself as the self. That state in which bliss, transcended above the senses and accepted as such by intuitive intelligence, can never be expunged. That state which, once attained, is considered the treasure beyond all treasures. In that state alone does the yogi become immune to grief, even in the face of the greatest tragedy. That state is known as yoga, the condition in which one becomes immune to any pain. The practice of yoga should therefore be followed resolutely with undaunted feeling. There was a man whose only son was killed by a cobra, and the wife told him about this, and he reacted calmly. And he said, "You have no feeling, it's our own son." He said, "You don't understand. Last night I had a dream, and I was a king, and I had 6 sons, and all of them were bitten by cobras and killed. And now I'm wondering, should I grieve for those 6 sons who are my successors on the throne, or should I grieve for this one son that has died now?" The more you spread your consciousness out in time and space, the more you realize that your reality is not just this ego, the less you become affected by these things. And yes, you can feel it, and yes, you can understand why this is a hard thing, but also there are certain attitudes that we need to develop in order not to be thrown into a complete whirlpool of grief. We must learn how we can have a calm mind. Well, the yogi in his meditation learns first of all to calm his feelings, his citta. And when the citta is calm, then it no longer responds. Everything that you see in the world, it depends on your response to it as to whether it thrills you or depresses you. And if you can reach that point where the citta is calm, then you can see even great tragedy in a calm light. What are the best ways to do this? Well, one is to have faith in God, give everything to God, so that I have found in my life, and I'm sure that I know that I'm not unique. I know that everybody is this way, but not all people think this way. I've had a long enough life to be able to look back and see certainly many setbacks, many causes for grief and so on, but at the same time I've seen that in every case that grief turned to become a pleasant thing. It had its positive side. I felt freer, I felt more understanding, I felt more accepting. When people who are close to you die, remember that it's only a temporary separation. If they're truly close to you, you will meet them again and again. I was in a television program a few years ago in India, and there were about 100 people there in the room. And I felt suddenly that they were all my old friends and relatives. I felt very strongly that they were very close to me from prior lives. Well, these experiences make it very difficult to grieve. When somebody dies, you know you'll meet him again. But the other side of it is, are you thinking of yourself or are you thinking of him? You may grieve because he's no longer with you, but he may find himself wonderfully free, leaving this body as Actually, it's a very wonderful experience. The pain that people experience in death is only the pain that they have before death, in the disease, in the pain of the body, and all these things. But once that moment of death comes, there's a great feeling of release. Those people are not suffering. And if you really think they must be suffering, you're not certainly thinking very well of them, because it means you expect them to go to hell. But if you really have their interest at heart, this is one thing about calming the citta, that then you no longer think that, oh, he's mine, or she's mine. This is somebody I'm attached to, somebody I love, somebody I want, always for me. When the citta is calm, then your energy is a flowing thing, and it flows outward expansively. So whatever you see of tragedy, now mind you, we're going to come to a time very soon, perhaps it's already started, it has already started in a sense, that a Great Depression is coming, much worse than the 1930s, and people will starve to death. How are you going to have food in the center of a city if a truck bringing food to that center is stopped by hungry mobs before it can enter the city? People in the inner cities will starve to death. It is coming, and most people would be absolutely destroyed by this. They would suffer terribly. There was that horrible period in Bengal when the English, and this was something that my guru told me about, that the English bought up all the rice, and then they bought them at a price that all the farmers felt was much more than the rice was worth, so they were very happy to sell it. But then suddenly they found they didn't have any rice, and then the English offered to sell it back to them at a price they couldn't afford. 6 million people starved to death. These are the negative sides of the Indian occupation of India, and naturally it was a terrible thing to do. But people are always looking for an opportunity to feel superior to other people. They look around for people they can look down on and despise. It makes them feel more superior. This ego is such a terrible thing that during the French time before the Revolution, the aristocrats would drive through the streets knocking children over with their chariots, killing them. They didn't care. They just thought that they were dogs. Well, they should have known better. They're human beings. They have a highly evolved nervous system. Naturally, the French gradually developed such an absolute rage that you had the excesses of the French Revolution. But it was a natural thing. And in the times to come, we will find great suffering. I'm sorry to say it, but we might as well prepare ourselves. I would say that a very good thing for you to do would be to store food that you can have when you don't have food available in the market. Keep some place where it's hidden from anybody, and stored food, dried food can keep a long time. Canned food has less value, but it's a good thing to have too. But in these ways, you can dry your bananas, you can dry your dates and fruits and so on. These can last a long time in that condition. But be prepared for a time when there won't be food available easily. And when that happens, often you find people trying to rush to the stores and buy everything up. But this is selfishness. You should think in terms of not taking just at other people's expense. Still, one thing that I've often insisted upon is the importance of starting communities. I have started eight such communities on 3 continents. We have several in America, 1 in Italy, 2 in India, and I would like to see these be a means for other people to be inspired to start communities like this all over the country. These communities where people take care of one another. These communities where you can grow your own food. When I heard my master talk about these things, and that one occasion in Beverly Hills when he talked with so much force, he almost pleaded with people to take him seriously, to go out into the country, buy land, live in some place where you can grow your own food, live simply, you don't need all the fancy clothes you think you need, where you can feel that you don't need much excitement, you don't need much outward entertainment, just live among friends. This is the happiest way of life you can have. I have started these things. They have now been functioning for 40 years. Years ago when I first started Ananda in America, everybody I knew was thinking I was crazy. My own relatives said, "You're absolutely mad." But I knew that it was what my guru had told me to do, told us to do. But I was the only person in that garden party where he talked so strongly. I was the only person who actually did it. I'm afraid it's going to be like the land is flooded, so I'm going to dig a well. It's useless. If you can now, you won't have money then. With this depression, what is happening is that governments, there are two kinds of taxation. One is the normal tax that you take, but governments know that they can't tax you beyond that. There would be a revolution. So they have what is known as hidden taxation. And that hidden taxation is accomplished by printing money. And they print more and more money, and so they pay off their debts like this. The people who suffer the most are the old people, the pensioners, people who lived on fixed incomes, because the value of the currency becomes less and less. I remember many years ago the rupee was worth much more. The dollar was worth much more. Every country gets into this game of printing money in order. This is why at the beginning in the first rules that the government of America installed after its independence, one was that money has to be backed by gold. You can't produce more gold than there is, but you can print as much paper as you want. So what we are coming to now is a time when money will not be worth the paper it is printed on. We're coming toward hyperinflation. And even now, what you could buy with 100 rupees now, it may take you 5 rupees on it. What you could buy with 5 rupees, it may take you 100 now. So we're headed in that direction, and it will be worldwide. I'm sorry to say I think America started it with its material greed, but all countries have been forced into it. Switzerland tries to protect itself from it, but even Switzerland is still, what is happening to the whole world, you can't really prevent. Now what happens when there's that kind of depression? First of all, how are you going to buy land if the money you have won't even buy food? I plead with you to take seriously to buy some land in the country. It doesn't have to be a lot. There are certain methods of agriculture that help you to feed yourself all the year round on not very much land, just a small plot, but a few acres where people can live. Don't go into it alone, because almost nobody is a jack of all trades. Almost nobody is able to do everything. Different people, you have them all come together. One has one skill, one has another. And so do get land, grow your own food. Even though you have a job in the cities, you can go out on weekends, you can work on it, you can pay somebody to help keep the crops going. But this is extremely important. Now what happens when poverty, really real poverty hits? There will be war. People without will try to invade countries that have. And so will there be war on this planet? I'm afraid it's going to be very serious. There are many atomic weapons in the world, 35,000 or more known weapons, not to speak of the unknown. How are you going to overcome that? You won't. There will be widespread. My guru said that no corner of the earth will be safe from bombs. It will come out all right in the end. This world will not just suffer and suffer and suffer. That's what people think of with Kali Yuga, but no. Finally, man will be so sick of killing each other that there will be peace, my guru predicted, for another 300 years. And people will prosper, those who are still living. But mind you, there will be many deaths. This world, in a sense, is a concentration camp, because every 100 years, although people die one by one, and not so noticeably, still every 100 years almost everybody is gone. And so whether they die right now in one big Holocaust or over a period of time, still it's really rather a concentration camp in a way. But it is true that there will be many fewer people in this planet. I think that one reason for the overpopulation, or at least the extremely big population, and the lower morality of our times, which is nature's way of making men have enough children to make sure that somebody survives. But these are all things to think about, that you will have warfare. You may even have a comet hitting this planet. This has been predicted by different people. If you can maintain that calmness, which remains unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds, then you can find inner freedom. Don't let yourself get excited. Somebody can get a scratch on his leg, and oh, terrible. I know, in fact, when I was 9 years old, somebody shot a gun by mistake, and it ricocheted and grazed my skin, and I had blood on my leg, and I thought I was going to die. It was just a little bit of blood. But remember, the less you take importantly the things that happen to you, the more you can sail through life untouched by anything. So be even-minded and cheerful, be moderate, be withdrawn from the pleasures and the pains of this world. All these ways that the Gita is telling you that you can realize God by that. You can also realize that sense of not being touched and not getting all upset because things go wrong. Because somebody spills something on your tie, you get all angry about it. Learn to be even-minded. Learn to say, well, after all, if I don't have a good tie, if it's ruined by something, I can get another. It's not that big a thing. Be even-minded at all times, and you'll find yourself going through life with a smile. This is the wonderful thing about the Gita. It gives you a way to find bliss and be blissful in finding it, and not feeling that you have to suffer to find God. Yes, there will come suffering, but a true yogi doesn't suffer. He just goes through everything pleasantly and is happy even in the midst of pain because he knows that is not he. Joy to you.